The story begins 200 years ago with Caesar, the king of a Russian sea, who possessed a magical ring. One day, he summoned his spy frog and asked about the fish he wanted to marry. But he was informed that the fish had escaped from his grasp. Then, we see a boy named Amelia who lived by the sea with his blind father, a blacksmith. One day, Amelia secretly sneaked out to go ice skating on the snow. However, his father heard his footsteps and called him to check if he had grown up enough to help him. To avoid work, Amelia pretended to be too small. Later, Amelia rolled down to the riverbank and started trying to catch fish, but he couldn't catch a single one. Suddenly, a whirlwind appeared in the water, and a strong wave crashed over him. At that moment, Amelia noticed that a big fish had fallen into his bucket on its own. Excited, he rushed home and prepared to cook the fish. But suddenly the fish spoke and said that if Amelia let it go, it would grant him 3 wishes. Amelia said he wanted to see the city without leaving the stove. Immediately, the fish used its magic to lift Amelia and his stove and carried them straight to the city. Amelia was terrified and clung to the stove, while the townspeople were equally shocked to see him. Amelia felt very cold, so for his second wish, he asked for summer to begin immediately. Instantly, all the snow melted, greenery spread everywhere, and the streets were flooded with water. When Amelia finally stepped out, he felt disappointed because he had wasted 2 wishes. Just then, some robbers confronted him. When they found nothing valuable on him, they tried to take his bucket, but Amelia couldn't afford to lose the fish. He grabbed the bucket and ran, eventually throwing the fish into the river. However, the robbers soon captured him again and hung him upside down from a tree. A while later, he saw a girl approaching from the riverbank. She freed Amelia, and he rushed back to find his fish, but it was gone. The girl introduced herself as Vasilisa, and upon hearing her voice, Amelia recognized that she was the same fish. Amelia took her scarf to prevent her from escaping and prepared to make his 3rd wish. He wished to marry the Russian King Tsar's daughter, Princess Anisa. Meanwhile, at the royal palace, Princess Anisa was with Lord Radham, the Prince of England. Radham was trying to impress her with extravagant gifts, including a magical organ played by a tiny man inside, making it seem like it played by itself. Soon, Amelia and Vasilisa arrived at the palace and overheard the conversation. The Tsar, eager to outshine Radham, boasted that his cat could sing songs that would make people dance uncontrollably. Amelia suddenly jumped in and claimed he could bring the magical cat, but in return, he wanted to marry Princess Anisa. Anisa was shocked, but the Tsar was impressed by Amelia's bravery and agreed to the deal. Amelia then set out to find the cat, but Vasilisa warned him that it wouldn't be easy. The cat offered people a choice of songs. If it sang a sad song, they cried until they died, and if it sang a happy song, they danced until they died. Despite the risks, Amelia ventured into the dense forest with Vasilisa. After a difficult journey, they found the cat, which asked Amelia to choose a song. Amelia picked a sad song, but instead of being affected, he started singing along. It was a song his mother used to sing to him as a child. Seeing that the song had no effect on Amelia, the cat started crying and agreed to go with him. Meanwhile, Vasilisa encountered Caesar's spy frog, who informed her that all preparations for the wedding were complete. Amelia was confused, so Vasilisa explained that Caesar had once saved her from a hunter's trap, and now he demanded that she marry him in return. Soon they arrived at the royal palace, where Lord Radham was still trying to win over Anisa. But Amelia entered with the magical cat. As soon as the cat started singing, everyone began dancing uncontrollably. The Tsar was so entertained that he ordered Amelia to take the cat away. Although the Tsar was impressed with Amelia, Anisa still didn't want to marry a commoner. She devised another difficult task for him. That night she met her late mother, Tsarina's spirit, who gave her a dangerous challenge for Amelia. The next morning, Lord Radham tried to impress the Tsar with his English juicer, which had a tiny man inside making fresh juices. The Tsar was fascinated, but then Anisa announced her next demand. She wanted a magical cloth that would produce any food placed upon it. The Tsar assigned Amelia to find the cloth. Amelia and Vasilisa set off on their quest. Along the way, Vasilisa told him that two brothers possessed the cloth. They stopped at a small hut and asked an old man, Baba, for some food. Baba explained that the crops had failed, so he had very little to offer. Hearing this, Amelia felt sad. Vasilisa admired Baba and his wife's loyalty, comparing them to a needle and thread, which complete each other. After a long journey, they reached a city of stone where two men were endlessly eating. They were tired of their lives and wished someone would take the cloth from them. When Amelia tried to steal it, they knocked him unconscious with a coconut. Vasilisa approached them differently, asking for water. When they saw their reflection in the water, they realized they were once brave soldiers who had fought against the Turkish Sultan. Now, they had grown so obese that they couldn't even leave the city. Regretful, they decided to give the cloth to Vasilisa. However, at the last moment, they changed their minds. But Vasilisa, acting swiftly, grabbed the cloth and Amelia, escaping before they could react. When Amelia woke up, he picked flowers for his beloved Anissa. Vasilisa tried to convince him that Anissa wanted to kill him, but Amelia was too love-struck to listen. He recited a poem he had written for Anissa, planning to propose to her. Vasilisa was so enchanted by the poem that she said, yes, before realizing she wasn't supposed to. She quickly came back to her senses and told Amelia that he should marry someone else, not the spoiled princess. Upon returning with the cloth, Amelia shared free food with the townspeople. The Tsar and Anissa arrived at the scene, and Anissa finally agreed to marry Amelia, but with one last condition: he had to seek permission from her deceased mother, Tsarina. Once again, Amelia agreed to the challenge. Vasilisa warned him that no one had ever returned from the land of the dead. Along the way, Amelia met his father but remained silent. His father praised him, making Amelia emotional. Eventually, he asked Vasilisa to fulfill his final wish, to restore his father's eyesight. Vasilisa granted his wish, and when they reached the river bank, Amelia returned her scarf to her. They journeyed to the land of the dead, where they met its ruler, Kasai, who turned out to be Vasilisa's father. She had once made a grave mistake, and as punishment, Kasai had turned her into a fish. Amelia requested Tsarina's permission for marriage, but she refused. Seeing this, Kasai decided to help Amelia. He offered Tsarina food to lift her curse, and at last she agreed to the marriage. The Tsar was delighted, but Vasilisa had to say goodbye to her father. Kasai warned that Amelia would forget everything once he left. The next morning, when Amelia woke up, he had completely forgotten about Vasilisa. As soon as he reached the shore, he ran away, and Vasilisa once again transformed into a fish and disappeared into the river. After this, Amelia went to Anissa, but he told her that he had fallen in love with someone else, though he couldn't remember who it was. Hearing this, Anissa happily ordered his arrest. He was taken to the town square, where it was declared that all his great deeds had been accomplished through magic, and for deceiving Princess Anissa, he was to be executed. Hearing this, Tsar left in disappointment. In his final moments, Amelia began to recall his childhood and the time spent with his father. Just then, Vasilisa escaped from Caesar's captivity and arrived there once again. She offered her magical powers to Anissa in exchange for Amelia's release. Anissa happily accepted the deal and set Amelia free. Anissa then made her first wish, to become the queen. She seized the Tsar's crown and locked him away in a tower. Her second wish was to become the wife of the King of England. Right then, the English ambassador arrived with a marriage proposal for her. Meanwhile, Amelia returned home, trying to remember the person he had fallen in love with. Suddenly, his father mentioned a needle and thread, and in that moment, Amelia's mind lit up like a spark. He realized that he was in love with Vasilisa. All the memories of their time together came rushing back. Without wasting a moment, he rushed toward the city, with his father and two brothers following him. The four of them broke through the palace gates, and Amelia began searching for Vasilisa. Vasilisa couldn't believe it. Amelia remembered her. But just then, Anissa interrupted, saying that she didn't want to become a sorceress like Vasilisa. Understanding Anissa's third wish, Vasilisa granted it, and suddenly, she turned back into a fish. At that moment, she realized her powers were now useless, as she could only grant others' wishes, not her own. Then, Anissa called for a servant, and instructed him to wish that she would marry the most powerful king in the world. As soon as the servant made the wish, Caesar rose from the sea and took Anissa away, because, in reality, he was the most powerful king in the world. Finally, Vasilissa's curse was lifted, and Emilia ran to her, reciting his poem. In the end, he kissed her, and at last, Emilia and Vasilisa were united forever. If you enjoyed this unique story and want to hear more like it, make sure to comment below.